Okay, I guess I'm going to have to do a rollout today. I didn't plan on it because I have a lot of work to do. To anybody that's new, like on these other sites, rollouts is sort of like when I talk during the day. Sometimes I cover politics. You know, I began reading Ecclesiastes last night because in the evening I like to read whatever I'm studying, teaching on Ephesians and Kings and stuff. But then also I read through the whole Old Testament and New Testament. So I began Romans again, chapter 1, and Ecclesiastes. I really don't want to make these teaching videos because then I got stuff to write on and all. But I thought, and Ecclesiastes is in the category of what we call wisdom literature. And I've read through Proverbs a lot. So I figured, well, let me pick Ecclesiastes. Sometimes you can go to Job. Ecclesiastes means the preacher, and it was written by Solomon, who also wrote Proverbs, most of them. But as I didn't mean to read it because it's sort of like a book about depression, Ecclesiastes. And that's the writings of Solomon as he's looking at everything. And he learns so much, and there's a few verses I actually took devotionally out of it. The winds from the south, and then they go to the north, they go back to the south, and they return to their circuit. And of course, Jesus said in John 3:8, when he's talking about the wind, and he's telling Nicodemus, you don't know where it's going. It comes, but you hear the sound thereof. And Jesus says, so is everyone that is born of the Spirit. And I like that. So we're like those winds. And those are the circuits I make every year. The south, the north, back, and then the circuit again. So that was pretty practical for a book that really does get into, like, depression. So anyway, I adopted a dog, Troy. I've showed you Troy. He's still my dog. But if I showed you the damage that the dog has done, this is all. We had some very beautiful, I guess it's a leather couch. Look, I never took pictures of it, but I had to buy all this material. He destroyed that couch over a period of weeks. And then I had to rearrange the living room, and he destroyed it again, and very destructive. Yesterday when I got home, I didn't even tell my family yet, but they were tearing another couch I have in the yard. But each day now they got into that. So I'm going to burn that whole couch eventually. But the stuffing that they tore out, and it was cold. So every day it's like I clean this house in the morning. And I do my regular teaching. And I prayed for a good hour and a half, worship. But then when I got out, I was in the tub worshiping. And then I did my outside prayer. But as soon as I get out of the bathroom, my nice glasses from New Jersey, I actually have two of them, two sets. For many years I couldn't see, because I had bad eyesight. And when I went to New Jersey 5-6 years ago and I was walking New York City, I realized, the streets are long and it's a grid. The history of New York City is a grid, the way it was formed. Interesting if you ever study it. But I'd walk like a whole New York City block looking, is this 42nd Street or is this Madison Avenue? And I couldn't tell until I got right under the sign to read the letters on those signs. And I realized, I can't be walking the wrong block, if I'm heading a certain area. So I went and bought two of these. These were $300 for both pairs. But they're safety prescription glasses. So as soon as I got out of the bathroom, the dog chewed one of those up. And those are supposed to last me for the rest of my life. I need them when I drive. I'm blind at night if I drive. So he got those. That's the next thing today. He chewed up all of my remote controls for the TVs multiple times. 3 of them, 4 of them, reprogrammed, got another one. Had to glue a box onto the tables so I could hide everything but it's like a nonstop battle. And I kind of associate it with, because I'll have everything here fixed and cleaned. Furniture, like hiding everything, putting everything up. And then if I come home in the afternoon, there's a surprise, whatever he destroyed. Eventually he'll chew the laptops up, and we hide everything, and it's too much for me. I'm done with all that. Now, I hope to continue doing our videos and everything. I had a few good, got with a few of my friends yesterday. Today's the first day of sunlight in a long time. But you would think we would be able to master something like that. And I told my other daughter, who I adopted him, we have many dogs, many cats. I'm taking care of my other daughter's animals. She's, I think, in Idaho. She's in the zero weather. They went on a trip. So my family and daughters do all types of pet rescues. And if you counted all of the dogs and cats from all my family, there's probably at least 50 dogs and maybe 50 cats. And I'm not kidding, because my other daughter started her own kennels at the ranch. So, but at this stage, and I love having the little dog, but it's consumed too much of my life. Look, I reupholstered things, but I'm looking at I haven't mentioned much on the news. You have the protests in Iran going on. You have, I was also thinking of how humans, the sinful nature, but also these types of things I deal with the dog, or like some elements of humanity are consistently destructive. That's the sin nature. And I just thought of the people. One of my new video sites, Daily Motion, I'm trying them out. They seem to be working fine. I have 3 new ones, but it's in India. If I remember right, India is the country where there are people that sit all day in internet coffee shops, and they spend their entire lives primarily scamming elderly Americans in the U.S. And they send, my family, some of your family, I'm sure, have gotten these. I've gotten those calls or texts, whatever, where the IRS and you will be in prison if you don't send us any money. Now, they sit there all day doing that. These are the scams, online scams. But what they don't realize, and they don't really care, is though it's all illegal, just those few words that they're constantly blasting. And to many innocent elderly people around the world, just that one text to an old elderly person. My mom, who still has like an old answering machine on the phone, okay? And then they listen to something like that, and all of a sudden, those few words of those people have created havoc in the lives of elderly people for weeks and weeks and months. Those that fall for the scams, then they send the money, and then they're right back at it again. Sort of like my little Troy. There are destructive things that you just wait. What's next? The glasses upset me. Those are $150 a piece, and they lasted well until my dog got to one of them. And it'll be something next. Now, as Solomon's writing Ecclesiastes, I don't want to go long. We might talk a little bit. He's looking at life through that perspective. He's seeing all of the cycles of life, the sun rises, the sun sets. Hemingway wrote a book, and I believe he titled it The Sun Also Rises, but it came from the writings of Ecclesiastes. Hemingway shot himself in the head, and famous writer, I have one of his books just because I like to keep the classics, I forget which one, or maybe I got the other ones, either way. But he exemplified basically that whole cycle of the sunrise, the sunsets, and of course it was wrong what he did. But when you look at humanity, you look at what's going around. There are indeed protests in Iran. I watch the news a lot, and it doesn't make a difference if you're liberal or conservative. What I try to look at is just to get through the bias. And I understood that regardless of what it is, the tax cuts that we recently had, it'll benefit my household. In general, it'll benefit. There were people that were against them because of the other reasons, but they never wanted to talk about. And I'm watching some of the PBS News and some of the changes that the Secretary of Education, I think her name is Betsy DeVos. Okay, I understand the changes. More money for that vouchers, things of this nature. Everything was negative. every single thing they spoke about. It said it will target young people, it will target, it will, and even the other week, I never commented on this one, it was PBS News, and they were talking once again about some of the new policies. And our country gives tremendous amount of aid to many other countries. Some of that I don't do at all. But some of the money that goes for aid into Africa, particularly for like Planned Parenthood type organizations. And we put a rule that basically said the money that we are now providing to other countries, which is indeed taxpayer money, if your organization performs abortions, we're going to now hold back that money for that particular thing. Now, a lot of Americans do not want their money going towards abortion. But then what they had was a discussion. And look, this is manipulation. This is the media. They talk often about fake news. They don't know they are. And I'll show you why. So then the discussion got into, because of the changes that Trump made, it's got many kids are going to die, many people are going to die. The whole, no matter what he does, it's to destroy life. That's basically the whole media narrative. It's to hurt, it's to destroy. So in the discussion about this particular thing I mentioned in Africa and the aid to the quote, like Planned Parenthood organizations and all, they said, we're still going to provide the abortion services to the people that come to us because it's a principal thing. And then they said, at the end of that discussion, now in the discussion, it was about abortion, it was about pregnancy and the complications of pregnancy. And at the end of that news clip on PBS News, about 2 weeks ago, Judy Woodruff, a long-term person, then they ended it by saying they showed the statistics of infants and infant mortality. But this is how they showed it. They basically said, because of the U.S. or Trump now holding back funding to organizations, foreign aid, Africa or other countries that provide abortion, they said this is the amount of deaths that you will now have, directly related to Trump. And they put on the screen so many percentage of infants that die, and it said through pregnancy complications and then through childbirth. What they did not tell you was in that heading, pregnancy complications, or even in the heading of childbirth, many of those deaths are from women that had actual legal abortions. Abortion is a traumatic event. And you have a percentage of people and women who had died during the abortion procedures. Now, some have died, complications after it and so forth. And I know the debate, but the thing that was deceptive was they had those categories, pregnancy complications and childbirth, and the amount of deaths that the adult women that are having their pregnancy complications, a number of those are from abortions. But they didn't say that. They basically made you think that every abortion procedure throughout the whole world, even in countries like continents like Africa, that you never had one death from it. They just lied. And so I just see this constant manipulation. And it's not that I'm a big supporter of Mr. Trump. It's just this constant manipulation. I'll just upload this because I wanted to talk somewhat on just that little example. It upset me because it's created, there's other things that have happened that I've not spoken on. But it's created an environment for different reasons where when I'm on the streets, which I was yesterday, look, there are friends of mine that sometimes there's, violent lifestyles when you do outreach to friends. But that's something that, I'm comfortable with being on the streets with my friends. But then you come home and what's destroyed next? It's like a constant thing. And look, when Paul and others talk about they're doing their mission, which they are, and we're going to teach on, and then they understand there comes like, there's enough in society, when you begin seeing it, you begin looking at it, you realize, no, apart from God, there really is no hope. And the destruction, even that little example of these guys today, primarily they're doing it out of these internet coffee shops and stuff, and they're constantly bombarding with their words. You are, we are IRS, you're going to go to prison, and just that one example came to my mind. What they do is that, and then when that person might hang up or whatever, then they created 2-3 weeks of devastation for the elderly person worried about, is this true, was it a scam, contact, and then they're on the phone calling the next one. There is accountability in society. The things that, when you look at some of we've had some tragic things go on. Yesterday as soon as I headed out, I went to get my gas and cigarettes. I got out a little late. Sure enough, I saw one of my friends, little Charlie, right at the gas station. And it's cold. It's been very cold here, as it is in most of the country. And he had some food. But he's walking. And I said, "Hey, Charlie, I'm glad I've seen you." And he asked me if I could give him a ride. I took him to Timmins. We picked up his girlfriend, Geneva. I said, "Yes, I'll give you a ride. I think they're open today." But as soon as I see my friends, I always give $1 a day, okay? And I understand a lot of people have a problem with that. Look, these guys get a lot more than that. And I'm not saying everyone should do that. For that one little $1 a day, it's, in some way, it actually has showed somewhat of a consistency in some of the people that have wound up giving them to other people. So when I saw little Charlie, I said, "You get the $1, brother." But there was a cop that was just going into the store. And we were right at the corner. And the officer, he was nice. I wound up having to talk to him because he stopped at the door. And he just thought this was like another homeless person, which does happen, that might have been asking somebody for the $1. And so then he waited at the door. He saw me talking to little Charlie. I said, "Charlie, you could wait. I'll come right out and I'll give you the ride," which I did. But as I went in the store, the cop, he didn't know me. He was an older, good, nice man. And he said, "I just want to let you know, it doesn't help them." And I said, "Well," I said, "I give $1 a day to the guys." I said, "I work with them." I said, "Charlie and his father, we do meetings together sometimes, Bible studies." I said, "I'm going to be with these guys today." I said, "But I said, I know what you're saying. For the most part, it doesn't help them." He was nice, and I just explained it to him, honestly. And I do realize we have some severe cases that have come back up into the media attention the last few weeks. The Brianna Wood murder. And the DA rightfully charged other people in that murder. And the DA had said, Mark Gonzalez, he said, "We're going to be fair, but we're going to seek justice." That's good. And I was thinking, and the man, Matthew Tejeda, he's the primary one for the murder, but they also brought these other charges. So Mark Gonzalez, they investigated more, because maybe the older DA wouldn't have had all these other charges, but they investigated. And the mother's name is Fallon Wood. And I've seen her a few times. I put there. And Brianna, you just see her picture. But she was a very beautiful young girl. And tragic case, I won't give you all the details. She was murdered and other things happened to her after she was murdered. And Mark Gonzalez said, "We're going to be fair." And I'm sure he will, but we're going to seek justice. And I had a thought that just said, from Matthew Tejeda, the only right thing for any of this system to do right now is to find truth and then the penalty. And if Matthew Tejeda did indeed murder her, it's not good to have a lawyer to try to get you off. It's not good for any of that. And even Mr. Gonzalez, who said, "We're going to be fair," I agree with you. But justice, what is right, is if you committed the murder, then you just go to that court and say, I don't even want a defense lawyer. This is what I had done. You don't plead guilty because you get a better deal. You don't plead guilty maybe to save your life for a lesser offense. The righteous thing to do is to say, I'm now in this court when the trial goes to trial. Say, this is what I did. And of course, if a person ever did that, judges always say, no, get a defense. And no, the righteous judgment is if you have done wrong, committed that crime, whatever thing it is, you simply say, this is what happened. And then we do what is right and just. And if evidence was ever, in any case, if the Miranda right was ever violated, but yet because of someone who violated a Miranda right, you have the right to remain silent. If an officer tells somebody, and you all know that that person killed a kid or whatever, it's unjust to say he got off because of a Miranda right thing. That's not just. It's unjust to get off on any technicality. It's unjust if you've committed a murder or a crime to try to get a lawyer to get you off. That is not the will of God. What is just is to say, this is what happened. I committed this murder, whatever it was, and that's it. That's what's just. And so I'm not a big defender of defense, high-powered defense people getting people off on because you say maybe a defendant who committed a horrendous murder, you say, well, he has rights too, and if you violated his rights when you found out that he did indeed murder the child or whatever it was, therefore his rights were violated, however, Miranda, whatever, therefore he gets off. No, that's not just. That's not just. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. There's judgment to that, okay? So I'm just doing this as a roll-up because I feel like the Solomon of Ecclesia, in the sense of just that upset me about now the glasses. Look, whether it's the couch, whether it's the laptops, it's constant. This has been going on now for, I don't know, 6 months. Pulling the furniture all the way into the yard. I mean, the big couch all the way into the... Okay, we must deal with this now. Because this is antenna. If a person's out during the day and doing the things I do, you don't want to then come home and say, now what's the next thing? And so my friend Mike's dog, who I loved, Bear, got run over. And Mike texted me that. I saw my friend Mike yesterday. And I just thought, for that whole day, because I loved Little Bear, this beautiful little black dog I used to play with. And so he told me, I hate to give you the bad news, John. The dog got out and got run over. Mike carried it back. He followed my friend Mike, and Mike buried it. But it made me feel bad for that whole few days over a dog. Now how much with the mother losing her daughter like that? Okay, we'll see how many we do.